Hey guys, Griffin here, and today I want to try to convince you that Faerie Fire Feral is bugged. Again. Now, last week I put out a video arguing that Faerie Fire Feral is bugged and got an absolute ton of feedback, both supporting my idea and arguments against it. I love and appreciate both of those, but instead of trying to respond to every comment, which I think I did anyway, today I'm going to take those arguments and refute them and hopefully convince you 100% that Faerie Fire Feral is in fact bugged. Okay, so first, if you didn't watch my first video, I'll link it in the description, but honestly, you're fine without it, as I'm going to recap. Omen of Clarity says each of the druid's damage spells, healing spells, and auto attacks has a chance of causing the caster to enter a clear casting state. Faerie Fire Feral is a damaging spell, and yet it doesn't proc Omen of Clarity. That's it. That's my bug I want fixed. So now, before you whiz down in the comments, I'd like to clear up the points from the first video that people made. So first off, Faerie Fire Feral is not a spell, it's an ability. Now, a lot of people argue this. In my first video, I argued that all feral damage spells should proc it, not just white damage. But many, I think, correctly countered with, feral spells aren't spells, they are abilities. And with that argument, I think you're right. And I experimented a bit to confirm, but more on that in a second. So I accept that most feral abilities are just that, abilities, but Faerie Fire Feral is a spell, and here's how I proved it. So one or two commenters said that the ultimate test between spells and abilities is silence. If you're silenced and can still use the spell, it's an ability. So I hopped on my druid and went to one of the very few places that has a silence and wrath, Nexus. The Azure Warders right at the beginning can cast a 6-second silence. Now I waited till they cast it and bam, my normal cat abilities could work, but Faerie Fire Feral would not. It's a spell, folks, no two ways about it. So the second argument made is it isn't a damage or healing spell. So this argument falls apart when you look at some of the spells that do proc Omen. For instance, Gift of the Wild, I don't think that's a healing or a damage spell. Also, the regular version of Faerie Fire can proc Omen. That's right, the twin spell that does 0 damage can proc it, while the feral one that does do damage doesn't. In case you're wondering, it doesn't in bear form either. It just doesn't proc it. Now, while you're talking about the damage thing, I do want to bring up the philosophical point a lot of people made. If it only does damage in bear form, is it still a damaging spell in cat form? My argument is yes. Just because it didn't meet the parameters required to do the damage doesn't take away the fact that the spell is a damaging spell. Though we've proven that it doing damage is not actually a true prerequisite to proc Omen, hence, Gift of the Wild and things like that. So the point is moot, but there it is. Okay, so the third argument is it wasn't like that back in OG Wrath. Now there are two ways you might be able to prove it, patch notes and footage. So I'm going to pop a few bubbles here, but Blizz's patch notes are actually only semi-reliable. They slip stuff into patches all the time without noting them. That's why a lot of wikis have a section called undocumented changes that were found after the patch came out. Here's a Blizz dev talking about making changes to Ulduar where changes were made but weren't noted in the patch notes.
The priority of those actions. So super detailed information. I have a big timeline of how everything changed. Lots of stuff that never was in the patch notes. So
on top of that, the footage argument is weak too. I found maybe 3 videos of a feral doing the rotation and they didn't press Faerie Fire more than once per fight because it lasts 5 minutes now. It's not enough to prove that it didn't proc back then, so we don't really know what it was like back in Wrath. We just kind of guess. Now the final argument people made was this won't change bear weaving or flower shifting or whatever. And they're probably right. Unless this change unceremoniously changes proc chances of Omen by a lot, bear weaving and flower shifting will likely still be higher DPS overall. However, bear weaving has serious threat issues and they are only going to get worse in later raids, and flower shifting in most scenarios is a DPS loss for the rest of your raid and is really abusing the same bug in a worse way. I feel that a lot of cats feel that the regular rotation is already complicated enough, and adding either bear weaving or flower shifting is an unnecessary change when if Faerie Fire would proc Omen of Clarity, they could spend their downtime spamming Faerie Fire. Now, hopefully I've convinced you that this is in fact a bug that Blizz can fix with likely a few keystrokes. So what do we do to make Blizzard hear us? I honestly don't know. Blizzard picks and chooses who they respond to, and I'm not big enough of a YouTuber for them to care about me. but as a collective community, I think we can at least make Blizzard respond. That's why I set up a link in the description that you can respond to show your support, or if you want your disapproval with this change as well. I'll be monitoring it and hopefully we'll hear back. If you guys think I still missed something, let me know in the comments. Or if you want to show your support, thumbs up this video, leave a comment, keep the algorithm loving this video. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, take care.